My name is Frank Dawson, and for over 35 years I worked as a locomotive engineer for the Union Western Railroad. I've driven freight trains through every kind of terrain, deserts, mountains, ghost towns, but nothing ever shook me like what happened in the summer of 1990. Somewhere between Black Butte Canyon and Ridge Hollow, a stretch of track railroaders always whispered about. Back in the 70s and 80s, this area was infamous for armed bandits who used to ride in on horseback, force trains to stop, and rob entire cargo lines. Even long after that era ended, the place still had a reputation: quiet, isolated, smothered in thick brush and dead silence. That night, I was hauling nearly 50 fully loaded freight cars from Phoenix toward Denver. My assistant engineer was a young guy named Mark, good-hearted but nervous by nature. We'd crossed that canyon a dozen times before, always at night, and I'd always prayed we'd never have to stop there. But that night, we did. A sudden mechanical fault forced the train to stall in the exact middle of the most deserted portion of the canyon. The engine could idle, but it wouldn't move an inch. We radioed for help, but God knows when another engine might come. The headlight of a locomotive is powerful. It cuts deep into the desert night. And as Mark poured us some coffee, something passed right through that beam. The light flickered just for a split second, the way it does when a large object crosses directly in front of it. But there was nothing there. Mark froze. "Frank, you saw that?" I lied. "Probably just the light tripping." We sealed the windows and locked the cab door. What scared me wasn't ghosts. It was the thought of real bandits finding us there with a stalled train full of cargo. But it wasn't bandits. Minutes later, at the farthest edge of the headlight beam, where the desert brush swallowed the light, we saw movement. Something big. Something dragging what looked like a heavy carcass across the gravel and pulling it onto the tracks. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a person. And it wasn't alone. Several figures appeared in the brush, tall, thin silhouettes, shining small lights toward our windows, like they were signaling us, or inspecting us. Mark whispered, "Frank, those aren't people." Then everything changed. A violent jolt slammed through the entire train. Not like a coupling connecting, not like another train hitting us, but like something massive struck one of the rear freight cars. The shock traveled all the way to the engine. Then, from behind us, the guard began blowing his emergency whistle, frantic, non-stop. When we looked out the cab window, we saw him standing near the tree line, waving his red lantern wildly, then disappearing into the dark. Except, the guard was supposed to be in the last car. So who, or what, was standing in the trees? We armed ourselves with broken branches from the ground and walked the length of the freight train toward the guard's caboose. Every few steps, we heard something move inside the cargo cars, like someone quietly climbing or dragging inside them. When we finally reached the caboose, the real guard yanked us inside and slammed the door shut. "Close the lights," he whispered. "They're here." Outside, dozens of coyotes surrounded the caboose, all howling in a way I've never heard in my life. Then the coyotes suddenly went silent and fled in every direction, because something heavier had stepped onto the metal roof. Something breathing, something enormous. We sat in pitch-black silence as the guard blocked the door's viewing slit. Whatever was outside leaned down, breathing through the gap, trying to see inside. Then it climbed onto the roof. We felt its weight, impossible, crushing weight, pressing the ceiling downward. Minutes crawled by like hours, and then it left, or seemed to. When we finally made a run back to the locomotive, we realized whatever those creatures were, they wouldn't step into the engine's bright floodlight. They stayed hidden in the shadows, following beside us, pacing us, keeping to the dark. Then, just when they seemed ready to close in, we felt the rails vibrate. Help was coming. A rescue engine pulled into view, its headlight washing the desert in blinding white. The creatures vanished instantly. We coupled the trains and were hauled out of that canyon. Even as we pulled away, I could see glowing eyes in the darkness, running parallel to us along the ridge, keeping up with a moving train. Watching, I never stopped there again. And every engineer who's crossed that stretch has their own story. Voices, shadows, figures in the brush that don't belong to any known world. Whatever lives in that canyon, it wasn't meant to be seen. My name is Daniel "Danny" Jones, and years ago I worked as an overnight station assistant at a small, forgotten train stop deep in rural Pennsylvania, surrounded by empty farmland and a patch of dense woods behind the station. During the day, 2 or 3 small passenger trains would pass through. Most never stopped. At night, the place felt like a graveyard, silent, abandoned, forgotten. On my first day, the senior attendant, Mr. Miller, pulled me aside and said something that chilled me. "Danny, this station has 3 rules. Break 1, and by morning, you might not be around." I laughed, thinking he was joking, but his face stayed deadly serious. He listed them out. Rule 1, after midnight, never go to the back platform. Rule 2, after 1 a.m., keep the signal room window shut, no matter how hot it gets. Rule 3, if someone calls your name in the night, don't answer, not even once. I nodded, still thinking it was superstition. That night, around 11:30 p.m., the old alarm in the signal room went off, the one that's supposed to trigger only when a train approaches, but no train was scheduled. I checked the control panel. Nothing was active. Miller didn't even look up. "Yeah," he said, "that happens sometimes, just shut it off." At 12:10 a.m., I heard footsteps at the front gate. An old man in a white shirt was sitting there, staring at the tracks. I asked him if he needed help. He didn't speak, didn't blink. He simply stood up and walked, slowly, straight toward the back platform. Miller shouted from inside, "Danny, don't follow him." My blood went cold. Rule number 1. At 1 a.m., sharp, someone started knocking on the signal room window. Hard. I saw a shadow through the glass. A tall figure stood completely still. Tapping slowly, I slammed the window shut and backed away. The knocking continued for 15 minutes, then stopped. Around 2 a.m., half asleep on the station couch, I heard a whisper, "Danny, come outside." I bolted upright. The voice was unmistakable. It was my older brother's voice, but my brother had been dead for 4 years. "Danny, I need help. Please open the door." My throat tightened. I almost answered. Then rule number 3 flashed into my head. I backed away, shaking, whispering prayers under my breath, while the voice grew desperate, angry, then suddenly vanished. Miller came in and saw my face. "You heard it, didn't you?" I nodded. "You obeyed the rules," he said softly. "That's why you're still alive." The next night, things got worse. I forgot to turn off the signal room's light after 1 a.m. The room became a glowing box, visible from the dark outside. At 12:17 a.m., shadows began passing the window, not walking, repeating, circling, looping, like they were stuck in a pattern. Then the light flickered and died, and something began breathing on the other side of the door, deep, rattling breaths, followed by a thunderous slam on the roof, like a massive body had landed on it. When the lights returned, everything was silent again. Days passed. I tried not to break any more rules, but on my 21st night, the power went out entirely. Total darkness. I made the mistake of stepping onto platform 2, the exact place Miller told me never to go. My flashlight dimmed as if the air itself was draining the battery. On a bench at the far end sat a man hunched forward. "Sir," I called, "are you okay?" He didn't answer. I approached slowly. When the light hit him, I realized it wasn't a man at all. It was a straw-filled scarecrow, wearing rotted overalls with a cracked porcelain face, but its head was turning toward me in slow, unnatural jerks. Then it whispered, "Sit with me, or leave." Its neck twisted so far sideways that no human neck could follow. I ran faster than I ever had in my life. The scarecrow was gone by the time I looked back. I told Miller I wanted a transfer, immediately. He understood, even helped me file the paperwork. Before I left, he handed me a small charm. "Keep this," he said. "That station decides who can stay and who disappears." Years later, the station is abandoned completely. Locals say no one lasts more than a few nights there. Some hear voices, some see shadows, some never come back. And those 3 rules, every railroader in that county knows them by heart, because the ones who broke them are the reason the rules exist. 4 friends, Adam, Jason, Mark, and Ryan, all from Cleveland, Ohio, were planning a quick trip to Chicago for some personal work. They tried for days to get a daytime train reservation, but the only seats available were on a late-night service called the Midnight Express, departing from Cleveland Union Station around 10:30 p.m. None of them really wanted to ride a night train, but with no better option left, they booked sleeper berths and waited for the date. When the night finally came, the station was unusually empty, a strange silence for a major city terminal. The guys shrugged it off, assuming it was just a slow day. Once the train rolled in, they boarded sleeper car S3. Ryan, who had been feeling weird pressure in his chest for the past few days, told the others he wanted to sit in the side lower window berth for fresh air. The weather was cool, early October. As the train eased forward, Ryan suddenly noticed a man running alongside the moving cars, a big, heavy-built guy shouting, "Sir, sir, please stop the train. My family's inside. Please help me get on." Thinking the man was left behind, Ryan jumped up and ran to the door to help. The moment he pulled the door open, a violent blast of icy air hit his face, much colder than anything outside. When he leaned out, the man had vanished. Confused, Ryan shut the door and turned back toward his seat, and froze as a sharp electric jolt shot through his whole body. His legs gave out. He fell face first onto the floor, his lips splitting as he hit the metal edge. An older man from the wash basin area rushed over, helped him up, wiped his face, and eventually located Ryan's friends. They carried him back to his seat. Ryan described everything: the man running, the freezing gust, the jolt. His friends brushed it off as exhaustion or low blood pressure, but the uneasiness lingered as the train crossed Toledo and sped deeper into the night. The car grew quiet. Ryan drifted off into a disturbing dream. He saw a man with long, dirty brown hair that grew longer and longer as the man sprinted through a dark forest, stretching so far it reached Ryan's own bedroom back home, wrapping around his feet. Ryan shot awake in terror. But the real nightmare began when he looked around. The entire sleeper cabin was empty. Every passenger was gone. The lights flickered. He sat up, whispering, "Where did everyone go?" when he felt a tap on his shoulder. Slowly turning, he saw, sitting right above him on the upper berth, the same long-haired man from his dream, the same build, the same clothes as the man who ran alongside the train earlier. The man leaned forward, smiling with a twisted, clown-like grin. Ryan tried to scream, but his jaw locked. Another violent surge hit his brain, like someone plugged electricity into his skull, and his whole body vibrated uncontrollably. The overhead lights flickered again as an even colder gust of air blasted through the cabin. When Ryan looked at the source of the wind, he saw the cabin door slowly creaking open on its own. The ghost sat staring at him, smiling wider, his hair growing inch by inch like a living creature. Panicked, Ryan tried to jump from the moving train. Anything was better than being trapped with that thing. But the moment he reached the door, Someone grabbed him hard from behind and yanked him back. He fell onto the floor, snapping back into reality as he heard, "Ryan, what the hell are you doing?" It was Mark, his friend Mark, said he woke up to use the restroom and saw Ryan violently shaking on his berth, then bolting toward the open door, as if sleepwalking Mark dragged him away just in time. Holding Ryan up near the wash basin, Mark splashed water on his face, and suddenly, both of them saw it. In the mirror, right behind them, stood the same long-haired man, smiling silently. They turned around immediately. No one was there. But in the mirror, the ghost leaned closer, grinning. Mark's face turned white. "Ryan, that thing followed you. It's not in your head." Terrified, the two sprinted through the corridor and hid in the next car, an air-conditioned coach where a few passengers were still awake. They stayed there the entire night, shaking, waiting for daylight. When the train finally reached Chicago Union Station, their friends found them pale, sleepless, and terrified. Ryan and Mark explained everything. Adam and Jason believed them instantly. They could see the fear in their eyes. They all agreed something had attached itself to Ryan long before the train ride. Maybe the man Ryan saw wasn't a man at all, but a spirit waiting for the right moment to latch onto him. The others took him to a well-known spiritual center in Chicago, where Ryan prayed, calmed down, and eventually felt lighter. A doctor gave him some medication for the anxiety, but Ryan never told him about the supernatural part. No doctor would believe that. After returning home to Cleveland, the group swore never to ride a night train again, whether it was a restless spirit, a trapped soul, or something darker trying to possess Ryan. They never found out. All they knew was this: the freezing gust that entered the train that night wasn't wind. Someone, or something, got in with it.